This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. I want to give a big yasher kayach to the host, Dr. and Mrs. Schwartz, for opening up their home for today's event. The Yibban Shem should be Mavarech, the Schwartz family, with Yeshuas Refuos, Surais Toivos, should always be Zoicha. The house should be a house of chesed for the whole community and for all of Klal Yisrael. Mazel tov to the honoree, Rabbi Yanki Friedman. Should be Zoicha to continue. Arbias Goyal Tzedakah. I want to thank my dear friend Reb Sender Schwartz for connecting me to this wonderful organization. So I just want to share with you that Kollel Shomrei Hachomos from Meir Balanes is it's a moisa that's very dear to my heart. Tell you the truth, the subject of Rabbi Meir, I can't shake it. Once I started learning about Rabbi Meir, it just took over my entire existence. Specifically, Rabbi Meir Shita in Kedushin Daf Lamed Vav, that ben kach uben kach nikram banim, that we're always considered the beloved children of Hashem. Ad kedei kach, that I saw in the writings of Reb Chaim Falaji. Chaim Falaji wrote a Sefer Nefesh Chaim. He brings 36 proofs that we are always considered the children of Hashem. He brings 36 rayas to the Shita of Rabbi Meir. And I was so enamored with these comments of Reb Chaim Falaji, I had an insatiable urge to go to the kever of Reb Chaim Falaji. But there's one problem. He's buried in Turkey. And I don't know if you know, Turkey is not a very hospitable country for members of our faith. But one day I get a call from a Hasidic Yid, and he says, we're making an Asiyah Kedosha for the yard site of Rav Naftali Katz, the Baal Smichas Chachamim, for all the descendants of the Baal Smichas Chachamim. He said, are you related to the Baal Smichas Chachamim? I said, now I'm related to the Baal Smichas Chachamim. Now, I wasn't related. He said, I want you to speak on the trip. I said, listen, you get me to Reb Chaim Falaji, I'll speak on the trip. So sure enough, a little while ago, I was zoicha to be at the kever of Chaim Falaji in Turkey, and people always ask me, because you hear in the news every day that people go to Turkey, and Iran finds out, and they're about to kidnap the guy, and the Israeli government gets the guy out just in a flash of time. So people ask me, are you happy you went to Reb Chaim Falaji? I said, yes. Now that I'm home, I'm very happy I went to Reb Chaim Falaji. Reb Chaim Falaji makes an astounding statement. He wrote a sefer called Moyed L'chol Chai. Says Reb Chaim Falaji, V'hein emes, de b'chol eis u'v'chol zman, chiyuva ramya alon liois daiton alav b'chol eskenu u'v'chol masi yadeinu. Says Reb Chaim Falaji, we have a chiyuv, there's an obligation never to be mesiach das from Reb Meir Balanes. You hear this? You're not to be mesiach das from Reb Meir. It's a pella. You're not to be mesiach das from Reb Meir. We don't find by any other Tana that you can't stop thinking about Rabbi Akiva. Does it say you're not to be Mesiach Das from Rav Tarfon, Ram Gamliel? For that matter, you're allowed to be Mesiach Das from Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to think about Moshe Rabbeinu. So what's Reb Chaim Falaji talking about? You can't be Mesiach Das from the Tana Meir. On everybody's mind, of course, is what's taking place now in Eretz Yisrael. Every sensitive Jew, any Jew with a heart, is thinking about Achenu, Beis Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael, B'chol Makom. And one interesting question we should ask ourselves, in the aftermath of this tragedy, and what's taking place in the world right now. How does the Rebbeinu Shalom feel toward us right now? What's the Rebbeinu Shalom thinking about us right now? What's our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu right now? So I want to share with you a ha'ara. I want to share with you an idea. I believe it's mamish matanim and hashamayim. The Gemara tells us, the famous Gemara about the Churban Beis Hamikdash, Kamsa bar Kamsa. The Gemara tells us that before Vespasian was dispatched to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, they dispatched a man by the name of Neron Caesar. Yeah? So the Gemara says, Shalchi lavei Nero Caesar. And he heads toward Yerushalayim and he meets a young boy and he asks the child, Nu, Zog Ibra, what are you learning? So the boy says, I just learned the pasuk that Edom will destroy the Beis Hamikdash, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom will wipe his hands with Edom. So Nero Caesar says, what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants me to do his dirty work, and then he's going to wipe his hands with me. And the Gemara says 7 words as a hakdama to Chorban Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara says, Arak, Nero Kezar fled. Ve'azal, he went. Ve'agayer, he converted. Ve'nafak minei Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir came from him. Hafla v'fela. The introduction to the Chorban is the genesis of Rabbi Meir. In other words, before we hear anything about Chorban, before Vespasian, before Titus, you need to know there's somebody called Rabbi Meir Balanes. Why is Rabbi Meir the Hakdama to Chorban Beis HaMikdash? If I would ask you, every day, especially now, we're being mitzapel Yeshua. How could you not say the bracha as Semach David Avdecha and say the words Ki Lishuascha Kivinu Kol Hayoim and not have genuine yearning for the coming of the Gula? My grandfather, who passed away a few years ago at 106 years old, he was in Auschwitz, he was in Dachau. He said he believed Be'emunah Shalema. Every day in Dachau, Mashiach is coming today. So when you say the words Ki Lishuascha Kivinu Kol Hayoim, this is the time. I want to ask you a question. Does anybody know which city will Mashiach show up in first? Where is Mashiach going to reveal himself? Very good. Most people say Lawrence, but it's not true. Tiberia. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says, on Daf Lamed Aleph, the Gemara tells us, the Gemara traces the history of the Chorban of the Sanhedrin. The Gemara says the Sanhedrin made 10 stops, and along with it, the Shechina went along with it. And the Gemara says, Umi Tiberia amuka mikulan. Tiberia is the deepest of all the Galosim. Umisham asidin ligael. Mashiach will come to Tiberia first. In fact, the Chida in his Hagois on the Zayar asks that the Gemara seems to be a stira to the Zayar. The Zayar says Mashiach will reveal himself to Galil. And yet the Gemara says B'Tiberia. So the Chida says it's not a stira. The Zayar is giving you the general location. But the Gemara is pinpointing that more specifically, Mashiach will reveal in Tiberia. Why Tiberia? What's special about Tiberia? Why not Yerushalayim? Why not Chevron? Why Tiberia? I want to share with you another interesting question. There's a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi in Kalayim says that Rabbi Meir have a idmalach ba'asya. Rabbi Meir fell ill in Asia. What he was doing in Asia, separate discussion. As he was about to die, Rabbi Meir issued the following public service announcement. Rabbi Meir said, Ha Mashiachain didchain. He said, I'm Mashiach. You know that? Rabbi Meir, before he died, he says, I'm Mashiach. So one of the Kadmoinim Mekubalim asked, Rabbi Meir's Mashiach? He's a nice man. He's a tzaddik. He's a Tana. One thing he's not is he can't be Mashiach. He's not Mizera David. He's Mizera Esav. He's Mizera Edom. He comes from Nero Kezar. If one thing Rabbi Meir is not, he's not Mashiach. What does he mean? Ha Mashiachain didchain. So there's a sefer the Ben Yehoyada quotes. It's called the Emes Yaakov. Emes Yaakov was written by Rav Yaakov Sha'alti al Ninyo, one of the Gedolim Mekubalim. He says, right before Mashiach comes, Hashem is about to bring the Geula, and the nations of the world are going to clamor, and they're going to say, who are you redeeming exactly? So Hashem says, I'm redeeming Klal Yisrael. So they say, what? Klal Yisrael? Halalu oivdei avodah zara v'halalu oivdei avodah zara. The Medrash says, halalu shoifchei damim v'halalu shoifchei damim. Halalu megala arayas v'halalu megala. These guys? Hashem's not going to know what to do. He looks at Michael. Michael, no? You have something good to say? Michael's the advocate. You have something to say? Michael has nothing to say. The Rebbe Shalom says, what about tzedakah? Ani medaber b'tzedek rav lo hishia. Michael can't say a word. Ask the Emes Yaakov, why couldn't Michael say tzedakah? Says the Emes Yaakov, tzedakah is not pashat. It's not pashat. Tzedakah is a mitzvah. Not pashat, tzedakah is a mitzvah? Yeah, he says. You know, there was a conversation, the Gemara in Bava Basra says, between Rabbi Akiva and Tornis Rufus. And Tornis Rufus says to Rabbi Akiva, why is it tzedakah a mitzvah? It should be an avera to give tzedakah. Mashal lama hadavar doimeh. A king decrees someone should be poor, someone should be impoverished, someone should be incarcerated, and the king says anyone who gives him money is going to be punished, and somebody comes along and gives tzedakah. So Moirid b'malchus, Tornis Rufus asks. Says Rabbi Akiva, bad analogy. So Turnus Rufus says, then what? A father who's the king puts his son in prison. He says, anyone who gives food to my son, I'm going to kill them. And the benefactor sneaks in and supports the son and keeps the son alive. The father will reward the benefactor. Says Rabbi Akiva, we are banim lamakoim. Says Turnus Rufus, no, you're not. Says the Yemes Yaakov, there's a famous machlokes, Rabbi Huda and Rabbi Meir. Now, I want to give you some advice. I'm not such an experienced parent, but one piece of advice is never take your children shopping. Okay, you should know that. Don't take. Now, I always wanted to be able to use the shita of Rabbi Huda. So let's say you take your kids shopping. If they're behaving, so then people ask, who are these kids? Say, they're my kids. They're my biological children. Here's the birth certificate. And if they're not behaving, who are these kids? I don't know. This lady asked me to do her a favor to watch these kids for the day. I'm doing her a chesed. That's the sheet of Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda says, when we're oisin ritzoynoi shel makom, we're banim ha'makom. And we're ein oisin ritzoynoi shel makom, we're not his children. We're his avodim. He doesn't know us. That's the sheet of Rabbi Huda. According to Rabbi Huda, bisman hazeh, you cannot give tzedakah. Not only is it not a mitzvah, you're not allowed to. That's what it seems the sheet of Rabbi Huda is. It says the Parsha Drachim. So why do we give tzedakah? And what does tzedakah have to do with Rabbi Meir? Why do we say Elokah de Meir? Why not Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah? Elokah de Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah anenu? No. Because according to Rabbi Meir, ben kach u ben kach nekroim banim. According to Rabbi Meir, we're always the Taira kinderlach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And no matter what we do, we could be Ovdei Avodah Zarah, Shayfchei Damim, Megala Arayas, we're Banim Ma'alyo, we're B'nei Kel Chai. We could be Banim Loy Eimon Bam, Banim Mashchisim, Zera Mereim, we're B'nei Kel Chai. Therefore, the Shita of Reb Meir allows us to give tzedakah. So listen to the Lamdas. The Rebbe is going to want to bring the Geula. So the Goyim are going to say, who are you redeeming? These guys, they're not better than the Ummah Yisraelim. So Hashem's going to say, well, what about tzedakah? The Ummah Yisraelim say, what do you mean tzedakah? Tzedakah is not a zechus. So Rebbe Hashem is going to say, yeah, but according to Reb Meir, it's a zechus. But everybody knows, we don't paskin like Reb Meir. Whenever there's a machlokes, Reb Meir and Rabbi Huda, halacha k'Rabbi Huda. The Gemara in Eruvin said, the Chachamim knew that ein k'Reb Meir b'doyroi. There's nobody like Reb Meir. Umibnei ma lo kavu halacha k'moisais. Why is the halacha not like Reb Meir? Shelo yardu chachamim l'soif datoi. Nobody knows what he's talking about. Nobody understands him. But comes the Rashba in two Tshuvos in Kuf Tzadi Daled and Reish Mem Beis. The Rashba says, this is the one exception to the rule when it comes to our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The halacha is like Reb Meir. Why? Listen to this. Because when it comes to any other halacha, we don't paskin like Reb Meir because nobody understands him. But when it comes to how HaKadosh Baruch Hu treats and views us, this is not noigeya to us only, this is noigeya to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is definitely yored l'soif data shel Reb Meir. So legabe this issue, halacha k'Reb Meir. In fact, the Samer Rebbe would say, when we say on Rosh Hashanah, we say im kebanim, im ka'avadim. So what does it mean? Im kebanim rachamenu, ve'im ka'avadim einenu l'chas luyos. So the Samer Rebbe would say like this: im kebanim, if we act like banim, so then rachamenu k'rachim of abanim. Even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that we should have a status of banim. But im ka'avadim, if we're acting like avadim or ein oisin ritzoni shel makom, so then who's going to bail us out? Einenu l'chas luyos. Rebbeinu Shem, our eyes hinge on you. You're yored l'soif daita shel Reb Meir ad shetechanenu v'soitzi ka'ar mishvatenu ayam kadosh. The Rebbeinu Shem is yored l'soif daita shel Reb Meir. So here's the problem. A little lumda Sunday morning is good for you. The Rebbeinu Shem is going to come to bring Mashiach, and the Goyim are going to say, can't bring Mashiach. So Rebbeinu Shem says, what do you mean? Halacha k'Reb Meir, so tzedakah is a zechus. The Goyim are going to say, please tell me, Rebbeinu Shem, where does Klal Yisrael live? They live in New York, they live in New Jersey, they live in Florida, they live in California, they live in Chutz Haaretz. We're the muchsuk. And when you're a muchsuk, you could exercise the halachic principle, kimli. We hold like Rabbi Yehuda. I don't care about the Tshuvas Harashba, the Goyim say. We're the muchsuk on Klal Yisrael. Says Rebbi Shalom, that's why I'm going to bring the Geula in the one city that the halacha could be like Rabbi Meir. Who's the Mara da Asra in Tiberia? Rabbi Meir is the Mara da Asra in Tiberia. Now, this is a halacha that not everybody likes. The halacha is not like what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. The halacha is like the Mara da Asra. People say, yeah, the Rav said this, but, state this. That doesn't matter what it says. The Knesset HaGdoila writes, halacha kamara da Asra. Says the Rebbi Shalom, I'm going to bring the Geula in Tiberia. Who's buried in Tiberia? Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is the Mara da Asra. In Tiberia, halacha Rabbi Meir. Tzedakah is a zechus. The Geula could come, says Rabbi Yaakov Shaltiel Ninyai. When Rabbi Meir says he's Mashiach, he doesn't mean he's Mashiach. He means his shita is necessary in order for Mashiach to come. We know the way the Rebbi Shalom works is before he brings any makkah, he's makdim the refuah for the makkah. Nero Caesar is headed to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Titus is headed to destroy. Vespasian is headed to destroy. Says Rebbi Shalom, before I bring Churban, I need to be makdim the refuah. So Nero Caesar goes, Orak, ve'ozal, ve'agayer, ve'nafak minei Rabbi Meir. Now Mashiach, he's ready, he's prepared. The Hakdama is there, the refuah is there. Now we can bring Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbi Shalom only allowed the Churban to be set into motion with the Hakdama of the Tana Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. But I want to share with you another idea. If I were to ask you, you spoke about your Elta Zayda was a Gabbai for the Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, and the Zayda, and the Tata. I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question. We know there's a concept of Yeridas Hadoros, yeah? Who does the Rebbeinu Shalom love more? The Elta Zayda, the Zayda, the Tata, or me? Me. Who does the Rebbeinu Shalom love more? Tanoim, Amoraim, Gaoinim, Rishonim, Rosh Yeshiva, or this dar? Says Reb Schwab, every morning we say, if you daven Sfard, you don't say it, but if you daven Nosach Ashkenaz, Ahava Rabba. What does the word Ahava Rabba mean? So people touch it, Ahava Rabba, a great love. Doesn't mean that. The word Rabba doesn't mean great. The word Grabba means increasing, ever increasing. The Rebbeinu Shalom's love for Klal Yisrael is ever increasing. You know how I know that? I mean, look, when I was a kid, and I was in high school, and the Rebbe would give a test, so you would learn you'd pay attention. You didn't pay attention, you had a test. What do you do if you don't know a taich? So you get either Torah tapes, or you get something called the Sensino Gemara, and you look up the English translation. The Aramaic was easier than the English translation in the Sensino Gemara. And then, when I got to 8th grade, they came out with an art scroll Makos. And then when I was in high school, they had Hamafkid art scroll. And now the Ganze Shas English, you have Mesifta, every Rashi is touched, every Toisus is touched. There's not a subject in Kol HaTorah Kula that you can't have a resource today to understand and learn. Why, says Rav Schwab? Because as much as the Rebbeinu Shalom loved your Zayda and loved your Tata, he loves you more. The Rebbeinu Shalom's love for Klal Yisrael is increasing. Whose Shita is this? This is the Shita Rabbi Meir. Ben kach u ben kach nekram banim. It doesn't matter Yeridas Hadoros. It doesn't matter how far we are. The Rebbeinu Shalom's the Tata, and the Tata's love is ever increasing, is more and more and more. We're not allowed to forget about the coming of Mashiach. We're not allowed to be Mesiach Das from the Geula. And therefore we can't be Mesiach Das from the great Tana Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, because through the Shita Rabbi Meir, that's how the Mashiach is going to come. But I'll tell you another Chiddush. The Ben Yoyada quotes Reb Chaim Vital that Rabbi Meir is buried in a very unusual position. Most people are buried horizontally. Rabbi Meir is buried vertically. Rabbi Meir is buried standing up, says Reb Chaim Vital. Why? Because the zechus of Rabbi Meir is oimed for Klal Yisrael at soif kol hadoros. So it comes out, we're never allowed to forget about the Tana Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir never forgets about us. We have a very special relationship with Rabbi Meir. Until Mashiach comes, we don't take our mind off of him, and he doesn't take our mind off of us. So in the zechus of us coming together this morning, at a time that it's Eis Tzara L'Yaakov, at a time that Klal Yisrael is in danger in Eretz Yisrael, uv'chol ha'olam kulai. We can't stop forgetting about Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir teaches us that he doesn't forget about us. The Ribbono Shel Olam doesn't forget about us. And if Mashiach didn't come yesterday, Rabbi Meir teaches, it's definitely going to come today, because yesterday the Ribbono Shel Olam didn't love you as much as he loves you today. So Be'ezus Hashem, in the zechus of dedicating ourselves to this very important Moisad, we should be zoicha ki lishu ascha kivinu kol hayom, to see besuros toivos from the holy city of Tiberia, v'bi askayel tzedek v'mher v'yaminu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.